Like ripples on a molten silver bar, can we individually or collectively create waves in the silver market? Can we change spot price? Can we change the premiums charged by dealers or even influence mints to make better coins? So many things can be achieved in this world. So let's talk about what we as silver stackers can do. Hello everybody, Backyard Bullion here, and a warm welcome to you all joining me for another precious metal ramble, which this week is going to be all about influence. How much influence do we individually and collectively have on the precious metal markets? And I'm not just talking about the spot price and whether we can squeeze it, that's the big headline of the last couple of months, but also how we can influence dealers and mints to reduce their premiums or to produce better quality products and to maybe have things that don't milk spot. That's one of the big bugbears at the moment from places like the Royal Mint. And the Canadian Mint took notice of that in the past. So we can effect change, and it can start at an individual level and work its way up in a community. And this modern age that we live in now, the age of the influencer and instant gratification on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, wherever it might be, it's a pretty effective way of trying to get change out there in this world. And I think it's an important topic to talk about. So I want to share some thoughts and opinions on it here today. As I always do, this is not financial advice. It's really just my opinions on this subject. And I'd love to know yours as well. So as we go throughout the video, please feel free to comment down below and like as well if you're enjoying our content. So influence. Now we're going to start with the big ticket item, which is of course about the silver squeeze. Now I've talked at length about the silver squeeze and why I don't think it's something that will work, and oh look, it hasn't really worked. And there are a lot of good arguments to be had that have come out of the silver squeeze movement. A lot of new people involved in silver, a lot of new people vocal about silver as well, which is great to see. But the idea that even on a collective massive scale that we can influence the price of this metal is, and in my head still remains, a little bit of a fanciful wish fulfillment exercise. And it is, as I've said before in the past, a bit of a dangerous one, because as with most investments in physical metals, whether it be silver, gold, platinum, whatever it is not something that gets you rich quick. It's something that keeps you rich over a longer period of time. And you often have to put a lot of work into your physical silver investments to get something out of them. And that hasn't changed. Nothing has fundamentally changed about the market for silver because of the silver squeeze movement. Yes, there are a lot of new people out there who are buying a lot more silver, and that's fantastic and great. That doesn't necessarily put pressure on the overall price of silver. Silver is a monumentally large market with a huge industrial component as well. If the industrial component started really massively buying silver, then that's where we would see some potential movement in spot prices, for example, on that kind of macro level. But collectively, or even individually, buying a few hundred ounces, buying a few thousand ounces, or going down to your local coin store and buying a bunch of different bars really has absolutely no effect on spot price. All it does is have effects on premiums, and we've talked about that at length as well over the coming, or the previous months, and likely for the coming months as well. Premiums are a thing that has been around now for, 18 months or so. Since March last year, premiums just jumped up massively from dealers. And it hasn't changed that much. We saw premiums come down a little bit into the end of 2020. But then in early 2021, they just rocketed up again, skyrocketed up as well. And part of that was due to, of course, I think the silver squeeze movement. And, there are a lot of really good things that have come out of the silver squeeze movement, like I've said. However, there's also a lot of really bad things that have come out of it as well. This idea of silver raiding and having this influence, this ability to go and bankrupt the system over a particular week or month because of the amount that's in the COMEX or something like that, is just going to have effects on premiums only. And it's going to give forewarning to all of these dealers that, hey, look, there's loads of people who don't really have much experience of investing in physical silver, certainly don't have experience of selling their investment silver, which is a really important factor, and we can see them coming. So let's just increase those prices and premiums. And then there's the other factor of COVID, and I do hate this, that there are companies around the world, not just in bullion, all over the world in different sectors, construction as well. You've heard all of the big issues around lumber. People are upping their premiums and prices because of COVID, and it's become this excuse. And I really do not like, especially when you get like on the customer services line with a bank or with somewhere like that, and they say, we can't really help you today, unfortunately, because of COVID. We've just not got enough staff because of COVID. And, enough is enough of that in my mind. I'm just like, do you know what? Deal with it. You're a business. You've got responsibilities. You need to actively go and manage these things better. And I get that there are supply chain issues. I get that there are problems with various different things out there in this world. But there needs to come a point where we individually start saying, do you know what? Enough is enough about these ridiculously high premiums that you're seeing put on these items. And it stems down to the bigger marketplace. It stems down to, just the supply of blanks, for example, to the US Mint, for example. US Eagles is a prime example of these high premiums on coins. And it's simply because places like the US Mint, they don't want to sell their coins for less than a certain amount. They make profit on them. A government mint, is there to raise money for the government. No more, no less. It is simply there to make as much money as possible to raise funds. It's essentially like another form of taxation, except it's kind of like a little bit of a misnomer because you all think you're getting something in return for your taxation, but a lot of people don't ever plan to sell their silver. So ultimately what you're doing is putting money back into the system, which again is another kind of funny thing that a lot of people don't necessarily realize, is that you are essentially supporting the value of the dollar by supporting the government and getting all of the different sort of economic practices behind them going. It does make funny sort of thinking about it, really. So what can we do as individuals to help with that whole situation? Well, you could say you could boycott the mints and just not buy directly from them, or just, for example, don't buy US Eagles. That is also a completely viable thing to look to do. But ultimately, that I think is one of these problems that, again, if you individually do something, it's not really going to be what necessarily everybody else does. And it really does have to come from this huge kind of movement almost. And that's where you do get a lot of traction from these things. But as we've seen, even with things like the Silver Squeeze movement, which has got hundreds of thousands of people who have been, seeing it, watching it, and enjoying some of the memes and the content that's been created, but ultimately there has not been any effectual change on those, sort of grander scheme marketplaces, and it is difficult to try and affect change on those kind of higher levels. But it is possible. It is most certainly possible, and I've seen it happen as well over the last couple of years of making videos just here on YouTube. Now, when I got started, one of the big issues at the time was about the maples, about the Canadian coins with all of their wonderful milk spotting and milk issues. And it had been an issue that had been boiling up for quite a number of years. And eventually it just seemed to get to a point where the Canadian Mint actually took notice and took steps to resolve it by putting mint shield or mint guard or something. There was a different finish that they put on their coins which stops milk spotting, and it seems to have worked. We now see wonderful looking maple leafs and various different coins coming out from the Royal Canadian Mint, and that's fantastic. That's great. It is effectual change, and that was born from just simple, oh look, the maples are not the best thing to buy right now because they're just going to be milky, and the Canadian Royal Mint took notice. There are other small changes which I've noticed over time as well. So, for example, when I first started buying coins from the Royal Mint, there were lots of different coins, proof coins as well, just delivered in really shoddy looking jiffy bags, awful jiffy bags which would bend boxes, damage coins. It was not good at all. And I remember some of my earliest videos basically using the phrase, for example, well, this package looks like it's been dragged through a hedge backwards by a badger. There are simple things that you just don't do as a business, and it's the feedback that we give as a community, as people who have influence on platforms like this, on YouTube. We live in this modern world now of instant customer service feedback. We can all sit there and say what we want online, and even if you have no subscribers on YouTube, your video can suddenly get traction, and it's something that no business wants. They don't want the bad publicity. So there are definitely ways of getting noticed, and I've had experience of that not just with coin dealers, with the Royal Mint, for example, Royal Mail, I should say, for example, when they had a very strange situation with one of my very valuable packages. I made a video about it, and almost that next day, I got a message from the CEO's office that they'd seen it. They were interested and they wanted to take action on it. So, there is definitely ways to go about it and to get what we want from it at the end of the day. And what I think is most important right now in terms of influence is transparency when it comes to that kind of thing. What I have always done and said on this channel is very much on the lines of, this is the facts, these are the facts, this is what we want to see, this is what we want but to do better. This is just how it is, rather than this is what we could do. There are definitely things and resources out there to use if you want to try and just pump stuff. There are plenty of silver pumpers out there. Goodness me, this last silver squeeze 6 months has really brought anybody and everybody out of the woodwork who wants to pump silver, wants to get affiliate code bonuses and everything else out there. And that's fine. If people want to do that, that's great. But it has to be done in a transparent way. If we want to collectively tell dealers that their premiums are too high, then we should not be going and buying from dealers. We should be focusing on second-hand markets. We should be looking at the different aspects of the second-hand markets of how we can achieve better prices for ourselves as investors. If that means that we just need to have a lag on these new orders, not buying the brand new 2021 Eagles at a high premium, but you can go online and you can buy the lower lower premium previous years dated, then fine, do that. In my opinion, I don't see any real difference in it if price is exactly what you want. If you're a collector and you just want a couple of them for your collection, fine, I have absolutely no problems with that at all. But it is, it's going to be difficult to affect change individually unless you have the platform to do it, which is, again, a really, really interesting question I could talk on at length on my own, just for what influencers should, could, and can, and in fact do. It is very difficult to know what is right, and of course everybody else's opinions will come into play, and some people will think differently to others, and that's of course the way the world works now. But from my perspective, what I see is us individually, we do have power, we do have collective buying power as well. I don't feel like there is really a achievable silver squeeze that can happen in a short space of time. But what I will finish this video up by saying is that I am not inherently against the idea of greater awareness for silver and lots of people getting into silver and buying silver and this having an effect on the market. I think if we have a slow, sustainable growth of silver investors, physical silver buyers, people who like silver, who want to enjoy it and stack it and invest it for the right reasons over a long period of time, then eventually we are going to see more and more larger stacks coming out that will have this influence eventually over markets. It will grow the bullion investor market. But let's be also quite realistic and honest about these things and understand that even if you individually buy 10,000 ounces of silver, which is almost arguably a lifetime supply of silver for anybody, it is really going to have very little to no effect on the grand scheme of things, the grand market out there. So don't buy with the aspersions that you will be going and you will, make silver $1,000 an ounce. It's just never going to happen. Never going to happen. So we can but see what happens over the course of the next couple of months and years. But those are my collective thoughts on this subject. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please do feel free to hit that like button. And if you have not subscribed to the channel, then please feel free to subscribe. If you've enjoyed our content, there's a good chance that you'll enjoy some of the content we make in the future. Otherwise, that's it from me. Have a fantastic week ahead. We'll see you on the next one. As always, please make sure that you like, share, comment, and subscribe for more.